has to be cut off, and he will have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water, and he will be clean. And on the 8th day let him take 2 male lambs, without any marks on them, and 1 female lamb of the first year, without a mark, and 3/10 parts of an ephah of the best meal, mixed with oil, and 1 log of oil. And the priest who is making him clean will put the man who is being made clean, together with these things, before the door of the tent of meeting, and the priest is to take one of the male lambs and leave it as an offering for wrongdoing, and the log of oil, waving them for a wave offering before the Lord, and he is to put the male lamb to death in the place where they put to death the sin offering and the burnt offering, in the holy place, for as the sin offering is the property of the priest, so is the offering for wrongdoing. It is most holy, and let the priest take some of the blood of the offering for wrongdoing and put it on the point of the right ear of him who is to be made clean, and on the thumb of his right hand and on the great toe of his right foot, and take some of the oil and put it in the hollow of his left hand, and let the priest put his right finger in the oil which is in his left hand, shaking it out with his fingers 7 times before the Lord, and of the rest of the oil which is in his hand, the priest will put some on the point of the right ear of the man who is to be made clean, and on the thumb of his right hand and on the great toe of his right foot, over the blood of the offering for wrongdoing, and the rest of the oil in the priest's hand he will put on the head of him who is to be made clean, and so the priest will make him free from sin before the Lord. And the priest will give the sin offering, and take away the sin of him who is to be made clean from his unclean condition, and after that he will put the burnt offering to death. And the priest is to have the burnt offering and the meal offering burned on the altar, and the priest will take away his sin and he will be clean. And if he is poor and not able to get so much, then he may take 1 male lamb as an offering for a wrongdoing, to be waved to take away his sin, and 1/10 part of an ephah of the best meal mixed with oil for a meal offering, and a log of oil, and 2 doves or 2 young pigeons, such as he is able to get, and one will be for a sin offering and the other for a burnt offering. And on the 8th day he will take them to the priest, to the door of the tent of meeting before the Lord, so that he may be made clean. And the priest will take the lamb of the offering for wrongdoing and the oil, waving them for a wave offering before the Lord, and he will put to death the lamb of the offering for wrongdoing, and the priest will take some of the blood of the offering for wrongdoing and put it on the point of the right ear of him who is to be made clean, and on the thumb of his right hand and on the great toe of his right foot, and the priest will put out some of the oil in the hollow of his left hand, shaking out drops of oil with his right finger before the Lord 7 times, and the priest will put some of the oil which is in his hand on the point of the ear of the man who is to be made clean, and on the thumb of his right hand and on the great toe of his right foot, on the place where the blood of the offering for wrongdoing was put, and the rest of the oil which is in the priest's hand he will put on the head of him who is to be made clean, to take away his sin before the Lord. And he will make an offering of one of the doves or the young pigeons, such as he is able to get, and of these, he will give 1 for a sin offering and 1 for a burnt offering, with the meal offering, and the priest will take away the sin of him who is to be made clean before the Lord. This is the law for the man who has the disease of the leper on him, and who is not able to get that which is necessary for making himself clean. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "When you have come into the land of Canaan which I will give you for your heritage, if I put the leper's disease on a house in the land of your heritage, then let the owner of the house come and say to the priest, 'It seems to me that there is a sort of leper's disease in the house.' And the priest will give orders for everything to be taken out of the house, before he goes in to see the disease, so that the things in the house may not become unclean. And then the priest is to go in to see the house, and if he sees that the walls of the house are marked with hollows of green and red, and if it seems to go deeper than the face of the wall, then the priest will go out of the door of the house, and keep the house shut up for 7 days, and the priest is to come again on the 7th day and have a look and see if the marks on the walls of the house are increased in size. Then the priest will give orders to them to take out the stones in which the disease is seen, and put them out into an unclean place outside the town, and he will have the house rubbed all over inside, and the paste which is rubbed out will be put out into an unclean place outside the town. And they will take other stones and put them in place of those stones, and he will take other paste and put it on the walls of the house. And if the disease comes out again in the house after he has taken out the stones and after the walls have been rubbed and the new paste put on, then the priest will come and see it. And if the disease in the house is increased in size, it is the leper's disease working out in the house, it is unclean. And the house will have to be pulled down, the stones of it and the wood and the paste, and everything is to be taken out to an unclean place outside the town. And, in addition, anyone who goes into the house at any time, while it is shut up, will be unclean till evening, and anyone who has been sleeping in the house will have to have his clothing washed, and anyone who takes food in that house will have to have his clothing washed. And if the priest comes in, and sees that the disease is not increased after the new paste has been put on the house, then the priest will say that the house is clean, because the disease is gone. And in order to make the house clean, let him take 2 birds and cedar wood and red thread and hyssop, and put one of the birds to death in a vessel of earth overflowing water, and take the cedar wood and the hyssop and the red thread and the living bird and put them in the blood of the dead bird and in the flowing water, shaking it over the house 7 times. And he will make the house clean with the blood of the bird and the flowing water and with the living bird and with the cedar wood and the hyssop and the red thread. But he will let the living bird go out of the town into the open country, so he will take away sin from the house and it will be clean. This is the law for all signs of the leper's disease and for skin diseases, and for signs of disease in clothing, or in a house, and for a growth or a bad place or a bright mark on the skin, to make clear when it is unclean and when it is clean. This is the law about the disease of the leper. Chapter 15. And the Lord said to Moses and to Aaron, Say to the children of Israel, If a man has an unclean flow from his flesh, it will make him unclean. If the flow goes on or if the part is stopped up, to keep back the flow, he is still unclean. Every bed on which he has been resting will be unclean, and everything on which he has been seated will be unclean. And anyone touching his bed is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And he who has been seated on anything on which the unclean man has been seated is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And anyone touching the flesh of the unclean man is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And if liquid from the mouth of the unclean man comes onto him who is clean, then he is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And any leather seat on a horse on which the unclean man has been seated will be unclean. And anyone touching anything which was under him will be unclean till the evening. Anyone taking up any of these things is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And anyone on whom the unclean man puts his hands, without washing them in water, is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And any vessel of earth which has been touched by the unclean man will have to be broken and any vessel of wood washed. And when a man who has a flow from his body is made clean from it, he is to take 7 days to make himself clean, washing his clothing and bathing his body in flowing water, and then he will be clean. And on the 8th day he is to take 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and come before the Lord to the door of the tent of meeting and give them to the priest, and they are to be offered by the priest, one for a sin offering and one for a burnt offering, and the priest will take away his sin before the Lord on account of his flow. And if a man's seed goes out from him, then all his body will have to be bathed in water and he will be unclean till evening, and any clothing or skin on which the seed comes is to be washed with water and be unclean till evening. And if a man has sex relations with a woman and his seed goes out from him, the 2 of them will have to be bathed in water and will be unclean till evening. And if a woman has a flow of blood from her body, she will have to be kept separate for 7 days, and anyone touching her will be unclean till evening. And everything on which she has been resting, while she is kept separate, will be unclean, and everything on which she has been seated will be unclean, and anyone touching her bed will have to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. And anyone touching anything on which she has been seated will have to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water and be unclean till evening. Anyone touching anything on the bed or on the thing on which she has been seated, will be unclean till evening. And if any man has sex relations with her so that her blood comes on him, he will be unclean for 7 days and every bed on which he has been resting will be unclean. And if a woman has a flow of blood for a long time, not at the time when she generally has it, or if the flow goes on longer than the normal time, she will be unclean while the flow of blood goes on, as she is at other normal times. Every bed on which she has been resting will be unclean, as at the times when she normally has a flow of blood, and everything on which she has been seated will be unclean, in the same way. And anyone touching these things will be unclean, and his clothing will have to be washed and his body bathed in water and he will be unclean till evening. But when her flow of blood is stopped, After 7 days she will be clean. And on the 8th day let her get 2 doves or 2 young pigeons and take them to the priest to the door of the tent of meeting, to be offered by the priest, one for a sin offering and one for a burnt offering, and the priest will take away her sin before the Lord on account of her unclean condition. In this way may the children of Israel be made free from all sorts of unclean conditions, so that death may not overtake them when they are unclean and when they make unclean my holy place which is among them. This is the law for the man who has a flow from his body, or whose seed goes from him so that he is unclean, and for her who has a flow of blood, and for any man or woman who has an unclean flow, and for him who has sex relations with a woman when she is unclean. Chapter 16. And the Lord said to Moses, after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron when they took in strange fire before the Lord and death overtook them, the Lord said to Moses, say to Aaron, your brother, that he may not come at all times into the holy place inside the veil, before the cover which is on the ark, for fear that death may overtake him, for I will be seen in the cloud on the cover of the ark. Let Aaron come into the holy place in this way, with an ox for a sin offering and a male sheep for a burnt offering. Let him put on the holy linen coat, and the linen trousers on his body, and the linen band round him, and the linen headdress on his head, for this is holy clothing, and before he puts them on his body is to be washed with water. And let him take from the children of Israel 2 he-goats for a sin offering and 1 male sheep for a burnt offering. And Aaron is to give the ox of the sin offering for himself, to make himself and his house free from sin, and he is to take the 2 goats and put them before the Lord at the door of the tent of meeting. And Aaron will make selection from the 2 goats by the decision of the Lord, 1 goat for the Lord and 1 for Azazel. And the goat which is marked out for the Lord, let Aaron give for a sin offering. But the goat for Azazel is to be placed living before the Lord, for the taking away of sin, that it may be sent away for Azazel into the wasteland. And Aaron is to give the ox of the sin offering for himself and take away sin from himself and his house, and put to death the ox of the sin offering which is for himself. And he is to take a vessel full of burning coal from the altar before the Lord and in his hand some sweet perfume crushed small, and take it inside the veil, and let him put the perfume on the fire before the Lord so that the ark may be covered with a cloud of the smoke of the perfume, in order that death may not overtake him. And let him take some of the blood of the ox, shaking drops of it from his finger on the cover of the ark on the east side, and before it, 7 times. Then let him put to death the goat of the sin offering for the people, and take its blood inside the veil and do with it as he did with the blood of the ox, shaking drops of it on and before the cover of the ark. And let him make the holy place free from whatever is unclean among the children of Israel and from their wrongdoing and all their sins, and let him do the same for the tent of meeting, which has its place among an unclean people. And no man may be in the tent of meeting from the time when Aaron goes in to take away sin in the holy place till he comes out, having made himself and his house and all the people of Israel free from sin. And he is to go out to the altar which is before the Lord and make it free from sin, and he is to take some of the blood of the ox and the blood of the goat and put it on the horns of the altar and round it, shaking drops of the blood from his finger on it 7 times to make it holy and clean from whatever is unclean among the children of Israel. And when he has done whatever is necessary to make the holy place and the tent of meeting and the altar free from sin, let him put the living goat before the Lord, and Aaron, placing his 2 hands on the head of the living goat, will make a public statement over him of all the evil doings of the children of Israel and all their wrongdoing, in all their sins, and he will put them on the head of the goat and send him away, in the care of a man who will be waiting there, into the wasteland. And the goat will take all their sins into a land cut off from men, and he will send the goat away into the wasteland. Then let Aaron come into the tent of meeting and take off the linen clothing which he put on when he went into the holy place, and put them down there, and after bathing his body in water in a holy place, he is to put on his clothing and come out and give his burnt offering and the burnt offering of the people, to take away his sin and the sin of the people. And the fat of the sin offering is to be burned by him on the altar. And the man who takes away the goat for Azazel is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water, and then he may come back to the tent circle. And the ox of the sin offering and the goat of the sin offering, whose blood was taken in to make the holy place free from sin, are to be taken away outside the tent circle, and their skins and their flesh and their waste are to be burned with fire. And the man by whom they are burned is to have his clothing washed and his body bathed in water, and then he may come back to the tent circle. And let this be an order to you forever. In the 7th month, on the 10th day, you are to keep yourselves from pleasure and do no sort of work, those who are Israelites by birth and those from other lands who are living among you, for on this day your sin will be taken away and you will be clean, you will be made free from all your sins before the Lord. It is a special Sabbath for you, and you are to keep yourselves from pleasure. It is an order forever. And the man on whose head the holy oil has been put, and who has been marked out to be a priest in his father's place, will do what is necessary to take away sin, and will put on the linen clothing, even the holy robes, and he will make the holy place and the tent of meeting and the altar free from sin. He will take away sin from the priests and from all the people. And let this be an order forever for you, so that the sin of the children of Israel may be taken away once every year. And he did as the Lord gave orders to Moses.